to Loving Me Before I Love You podcast with Tammy Nicole. I am Tammy Nicole, and I am super excited to be starting this podcast. I am very passionate about self love and empowering women, and this podcast is going to allow me to do just that. I am basically going to be looking at self love, and we are affected by self love in reference to careers, beauty, relationships, and mental health. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to join us or join me and some of my friends on this journey as we do this deep dive and exploration. We're going to have a little fun, we're going to talk some noise, and we're going to heal and find solutions to some of the issues that we struggle with on our day-to-day as we build healthy self-love relationships with ourselves so that we can love others, as loving me before I love you is essential. Hey y'all, welcome back. We are now here with Evelyn Peters, our HR professional, and shall I say expert. She is here. We're going to be talking about social media and career. And you know, social media these days has really had an impact on, I would say, all aspects of our lives in general, but typically more so, I guess I can remember back when it was affecting careers in a negative way. I can recall the story of the young lady losing her job because she went on vacation and posted it on Facebook. And I think she was doing something like dancing on a tabletop or something. She was having a good time. She was living her best life. And the next thing we knew, like the news was like fired from a Facebook post or something like that. And so I was like, wow, that's very interesting how your personal life put on social media can become more of a detriment or can make you lose your livelihood. That was then. I don't remember when that was a long time ago. But now social media is used in a more positive way where I don't know if people can't be fired because of what they do, but I know that it's become folks' jobs.
Right. Yeah. Social media has definitely had an impact when it comes to career, and it's both. It's negative and positive. I see both sides of it. So, on the negative part of it, um, it can create a liability for employers as well. And yes, it can cause livelihood for the employees. Yeah. Why,
Wow.
you may
Okay.
ask?
Yeah. So just saying that it can
hmm
be a liability for employers was like a really like, wait, what? Like, how did that
hmm
affect them? Like,
Yeah.
granted, I think in general we talk about as kids, you think about parenting and you think about like family names or what have you, and you are a
hmm
representation of this family
hmm
when you go out in the streets. But I'm
Exactly.
like, is that where you're headed when you talk about it can be a liability to the yeah,
So,
but I don't know
yes
if I'm
and
wearing a
no.
badge out in the streets, but okay.
So, yes and no. So, yes, if the company already has, which most companies do, have a social media policy in place already, where it's if you are on social media, you're not to name the company. If you do, you are representing the company at that moment, and you have to be careful what you say. You have to put a disclaimer essentially on your post, on your own social media, if you are naming the company that you work for and saying that doesn't have anything to do with them, it's not their opinion, it's your personal opinion. But from the employer standpoint, it's because um, your life is on display now, right? You're putting everything on social media. Your employer can go on there if you've accepted their friend request, goes on there, they see your activities, drinking, partying, whatever it may be. A lot of people also post their religious beliefs on social media. So the employer goes on there and they see something that they may not agree with and they terminate this employee. The employee can then file a claim for wrongful termination due to discrimination. That's where the liability piece comes in. So the advice to many employers is don't look at your employees' social media if it doesn't have anything to do with their job per se. Like it's not,
Mm-hmm.
they're not your social media representative, right? Don't
Oh,
go
you're
onto
like a
their
social
social
media
media.
manager.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
exactly. Stay away from it because you can create that liability. It may not have been your intention to do so, but the impact that it has is, oh, I now have a discrimination claim on, on the company because of what your employee says you saw that created the termination.
Got you. Yeah, that could. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that, but I guess that could really be. Yeah, that could be really damaging too on both ends. Like
And
it's
most
just not just
definitely, yeah.
one sided as much
Hmm.
as we originally thought. Like, from an outside looking in, it's like, oh dang, you can't have fun. Like personal life is cut off, and it's like, who wants to do that? Who wants to be a part of that equation? That it's like, wait a
Right.
minute, your time is 9 to 5. At
Right.
5:01, it's my time.
It's my time.
You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
who wants to do that? But I
Right.
guess the other part of it is how does so when I also look at it from a social media standpoint and career, I'm also looking at the individual,
Hmm.
right? And what we put on our social media is not always a direct reflection of us, even though it's appeared that way. I think a lot of times we are putting out what we think we want other people to see, or what we think other people want to see per
Right.
se. So I think it just can be very like misleading.
Most definitely. It's very tricky. It is. And when you're thinking of, advancing in your career, or if you, are trying to just, put a certain image of yourself out there, right? You want to be careful on what it is that you are reposting. You may repost something that you thought was funny, but someone in the business may not see it that way. And then now they have a certain perception of you because of what you think is funny that really isn't funny. And now it's, oh, is this their thought process? Is this how they handle, everything? So social media creates, yes, it creates opportunities, but it also creates this an image, right, of you that you're putting out there for others to interpret, which may not be what, how you feel about yourself really. So it's a very thin line, very thin line. Is social media amazing? Yes, it can. It can definitely boost your career and, put your image out there. But once again, what image are you putting out there? Is what you're intending to put out there, is that how people are perceiving it? So before you do that, I would advise that do a little bit of research, and even with your close friends, and say, ask them for their feedback. What does me posting this say about me in your eyes? Because then you get to learn how others may view, that post, or even their perception of you.
Yeah, I think that's real. I won't say it's hard, but I would
Hmm.
say no one's really thinking about that. You know what I mean? Like I'm not thinking about that. I'm not gonna pick up the phone per se, call you and say, "Hey, girl, I'm about to post this. You think
Right.
it's something I should post?"
Right.
Like
Right.
that's not even the thought pattern or the way we're thinking
Hmm.
towards pushing or posting our personal lives.
Hmm.
Now, I will say this. I do think, and I think it kind of exists, but LinkedIn to me is a social media platform that is for business.
Business. Right.
And I think that maybe, just maybe, we can have rules against, you know, if it's posted on a business platform, then I can use this against you versus if it's posted on a personal type platform, i.e., Facebook, Instagram, TikTok,
Hmm.
etc. I look at TikTok recently. The I want to say it was a school personnel person. I want to say she worked in the front office of a elementary school, and she was posting on TikTok saying, but she was giving like stories. She never said what school she went to or worked at. She never said the names of these children or what have you. She gave an example, or she was just giving TikTok's does story time, right?
Mm-hmm.
People get off on people telling these little lavish, outlandish stories that are, I mean, entertaining, right? It's a point
Right.
of
It's
entertainment.
entertainment. Right.
And so she was given some kind of story talking about, oh man, this little girl got picked up today, and stepdaddy came in to pick her up, and biological daddy came to pick her up, and biological daddy had a girlfriend, and and biological daddy name wasn't on the child's pickup list, but the stepdaddy name was on the child pickup list, and da da da. Landed her in the superintendent's office,
Yeah.
terminated
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
off her personal TikTok account that had no identifiers. The only identifier was the fact that you knew her from working at your same company.
Yeah.
Make it make sense. Make it make sense that that's okay. Make it make sense that, it's something that should really be available, you know what I mean, in reference to even being addressed. I think, my personal opinion, if you have an issue with what you see, it's okay to bring that person and say, hey, we noticed this. It's a little teeter-tottery on the line of, breaching confidentiality or X, Y, and Z, simply because that individual can identify themselves. Now, the employee said she embellished the story. But if it's identifiable, in other words, something around it took place. So maybe the girlfriend wasn't there, and maybe both names were on the, instead of it being one person's name to make it real dramatic. If I'm the parent and I see your TikTok, I'm going to know you talking about me.
Right.
That's
where the
very
issue
well
comes in.
so.
Absolutely. Because that's where the issue comes in, because then that parent can go to the school and file a complaint, or that parent themselves can post on social media saying this school has violated my privacy, even if the employee themselves didn't identify them. So it is very tricky. Again, it's a very, very fine line as to what is legal, right, and what is not. So always err on the side of caution when it comes to that. And then a lot of employees, because of social media now and the way that everything is out on display, they have multiple pages when it comes to social media, where they do have, oh, this is a page where employees, my coworkers, can view, and then this is just for strictly friends and family because of what is posted on there. So again, it's kind of like, being careful with what you put out there to be perceived by others. How much do you really want to expose of yourself? Because going out on social media and posting things, you're exposing yourself, you're exposing your life, right? You post your family, you post the events. I just had a conversation with a client on Friday where an employee said, I can't come in, I'm sick. But a coworker saw on social media them posting of, oh, they can't wait for tomorrow for their party. They were getting ready to to have a party. Client calls and says, can I terminate? No, it doesn't have anything to do with the job. It doesn't have anything to do with their
Extremely.
job.
I
So
think,
it's
though, that
very,
there's got to
very
be
tricky.
a little bit
Very.
more guidelines than it is so subjective. I can think again, TikTok is like the thing, right? It's the new thing now. Being able to have multiple pages is cool. However, if you are an individual trying to become viral, as I go in quotes, that page being private is slim and none, right? Because you can't be viral private. You know 200 people in your circle. No, you them 200 people ain't sending you viral.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, And because it's become
Right.
a new side hustle to make money, right? People are doing
Right.
all kind of things to make that happen. Streamlining, making something have a little bit more guidelines, I think is honestly the best way to go. Now, again, I agree confidentiality
Mm-hmm.
plays a huge part, right? I think about myself being in the mental health field, being a therapist. I can't sit up here and bring up conversations that I've had with
Right.
clients, right? And tell their whole story. And just because I didn't say their name, feel like I didn't breach
Mm-hmm.
confidentiality, right? Because if that story hits mainstream for
Right.
whatever reason, because I
Right.
mean,
Right.
you cannot have your stuff public. But if I come watch it and I'm like, oh man, everybody should see this. And I'm like, let me share this. Let me do X, Y, and Z. I've now allowed it to go
Right.
out, even though,
Right.
wait, I didn't post that for that.
You
I
share it.
posted it
Right.
in my circle. Or
Mm-hmm.
I post, So to me, having the multiple
Exactly.
pages may not be the end all be all or the fixer for the situation. I
Right.
think it should just have some level of guidelines that will allow people to be people, have their own entertainment, do X, Y, and Z, as well as have a business side that is like, this is all business. You do something over here, we gon- we got a couple of little things coming your way. But like I say, TikTok is it's the thing. Like the doctors, the nurses, not doctors, they were nurses that
Right.
were on there giving them, I think they were part of the labor and delivery, and it was like giving their little eeks. They call them eeks. This icks me. This icks me. Nobody knew where the heck they
Right.
worked.
The X. Yeah.
Nobody, no,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you can go watch the videos right now, and you're like, well, we don't know where they work,
Yeah.
but
Mm-hmm.
everybody
Mm-hmm.
got icks about their. Everybody got icks. Like,
Yeah. Their roles. Yeah. I think the difference in that situation though is because when you think of a nurse, let's just use their example. You think of a nurse, right? Just like doctors, they take oaths, they vow to, right? It's healthcare. So to see something like
mm,
that, it's like, wait a minute, you're held at a higher standard when it comes to, certain things. So if someone, let's say, you know, a warehouse worker, nothing against warehouse workers, very hardworking people. If they were to have posted something of what gives them the ick, right, about something at work, would it be perceived the same as it was with these nurses? No, because they are held at higher standards, just like doctors are held at higher standards, lawyers, depending on what your roles are, or the CEO of a company versus an entry level person, right, posting the
mm,
exact same thing, they're going to be looked at differently. Why? Because in our opinions, society, they should know
right,
better, right? And that's not always the case. Like you said, let them be people. They're still people, but you're dealing with a sensitive situation. Labor and delivery. Women are at their most vulnerable, right? When they're giving birth, and you're trusting this person to be there and have your quote unquote best interest in that moment, right? So it's like I'm exposing myself, I'm completely vulnerable to you, and you're essentially going and making fun of me. That betrays a certain level of trust that that person, that patient had in that nurse. So they're held at a higher standard. So that those things is kind of what makes a difference as well. With many employers now, they do have social media policies that have been drafted by their attorneys outlining what's acceptable
absolutely.
and what is not
Hmm.
acceptable. You, as the employee, now, once you sign that, you're saying you agree to abide by this, right? So if you violate that policy, then yeah, you can be terminated
Absolutely.
for that. Even if you're saying, "Oh, but I didn't mean to." Well, you signed that you understood what you were signing. You acknowledged that. So, it's again very tricky, very fine line. So just it's a matter of really thinking
Okay.
of
Agreed.
Who's
So,
going to see
what
this, or who can
positive
possibly see
impacts
this
do you
if I
think
post this?
that social media has on careers? Not that we haven't talked about anything positive, because I think that, living your life is positive in itself. I just think that it becomes as a negative effect at times because you're just, living your best life. But how
Right.
can social media have a positive effect on your career in
Right.
general? Mm.
Exposure on the positive end, right? Instead of the negative end. Definitely
Hmm.
exposure. Social media can put you in front of people that on the regular you would have never had an opportunity to meet. And it can be, you posting something inspirational, right? And it gets shared. Someone that already has, let's say, a podcast or a TV show or, anything with a platform with a large audience says, "Oh, I like what this person is saying. Let me invite them to speak." And now it's, "Oh, your name is out there. You've grown into an entity yourself now because of the exposure that you had through social media." So social media has catapulted a lot of careers. There are many people who have, had the opportunity to quit
Right,
essentially their 9 to 5 and create a wonderful living off of social media, created their own platform on social media. So, social media
right,
is not always negative. It
right.
definitely does have its positives, and you reach many people from all over through social media. So, it's if used properly, it can
Awesome.
definitely
So,
be
here
a
on
positive
Loving Me Before I
impact,
Love You,
have
we
a
do a lot
positive
of
impact in your
self
life.
love conversations, right? So, with social media,
Mhm.
career, and now I'm about to throw self love in the mix, how do you get all of those things into one sector as they impact one another, right? So, self love impacts, from my perspective, everything, right? That's just me. You know, that's what I do on the regular. So, when you are
Absolutely.
utilizing your self love and your social media,
Absolutely.
how does the two of them combine affect career?
Well, like you said, self love is the first thing that you have to do. You have to love yourself. Um, if you Loving yourself will allow you to say, "This is what I deserve. This is what I want, and I'm not going to stop until I get there." So when it comes to your career and self love, is again knowing what
Hmm.
boundaries what boundaries you're going to set for yourself. What will you accept in your role? When even when applying for a position, you go in an interview. When you interview, it's not just the you selling yourself to the company also needs to sell itself to you, because is it going to fit with your life, your how you view yourself, your family? Is it going to be a balance between that position and your day to day? So again, it's I
Hmm.
love myself enough to know that I'm not going to go into a position
Hmm.
where I'm going to constantly be, belittled or talked down to or have a manager that's yelling at me. No, self love is you standing up for what, you believe in. Um, your morals go into that as well. So loving yourself and you're in the career is extremely important. And also in that career is self development, right? So with self development, growing skills, learning new things, that's also part of you loving yourself. You're allowing yourself to grow and become a more, put yourself in a position of power, essentially. Because the more that you grow in that position, again, loving yourself, not allowing people to belittle you or anything like that,
Hmm.
will eventually allow you to grow into a position that you see yourself in ultimately, whether it be an
Absolutely.
executive
And I think
position,
using
a
social
C suite
media
level, or
in that
even a CEO
same
of your own company one day.
corridor, as I say, is important. knowing how to use it. So I think from the standpoint of self love, social media, and career, it starts with the self love in order to know how I'm going to use
Absolutely.
this social media aspect in order how I'm going to advance my career through all of it. So, mhm,
Absolutely. It's seeing yourself growing, right? Like you don't want to
yeah,
go in an entry position level and stay there for 10 years, right? Like you want to respect yourself and love yourself
yeah.
and to knowing, no,
Yeah, I
I
also, I
deserve
mean,
better. I'm
sitting here
going to
thinking
move
about,
up
I was
this
like,
ladder,
man, social media almost is like a journal
self-development to get there.
because you can see the growth, right? You can see your first video of when you first
Oh,
got on social
absolutely.
media. If you're a frequent poster, I'm not.
Hmm.
However, if you're a frequent poster, you can see like what was it like when you posted your first video to where
Hmm.
you are now. Just like when you're writing in a journal through whatever, you're just writing, right? So you write from the first entry until now, you
Right.
kind of see the growth patterns. So you can use it along the way, I guess, as you're growing. So that's really cool. Now,
Absolutely.
Miss HR expert, I want your tips or advice for these wonderful listeners of ours. Yes, you guys. How do they decide how to navigate social media in their career? Like, what are the questions or thoughts or, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps that they may need to take in either deciding what to post, or not to post, or if having social media, altogether, like, should they really have it? Should they just do everything 100% personal on this side and 100% business on the other, i.e. LinkedIn? Or, like, what would be your full advice or tips for individuals who love social media and their career?
All right. The the first step is to think, if I post this, how is it going to be viewed? Possibly, how will it be viewed? So you want to think that through. And also, again, depending on where you are in your career, it could have a different impact. So, what are you posting? Who could potentially see it? And do you want that person to even see it? Like, is this something that you would want your boss to be able to see? And if so, will it say, oh, yeah, this is someone that we could have in a management position based off of this post? So you want to just be careful in what it is that you post. It's not saying you can't have a life, right? We're human. We want to have fun and we want to post those the good times, right? But just really think through as to what is this post going to say about me when I put it out there, and what will it say about me 5 years from now if somebody sees it? Because that's what some people may not think about either when posting is, this is going to be around for years. Anybody could pull it up. So 5 years from now, is this going to still be the person that I want to represent for
So, because
myself, essentially?
it is the
So
reality. But when I hear
yeah,
you say that, I
I
also
know,
hear,
but it's the
man, I really
reality.
can't be myself in this at the same time.
Mhm.
And that's the struggle for me. Like, it's like, yeah, it's going to be around for forever, but it's also my truth if I'm being truthful, right? Like, mhm.
But you should always live your truth. So that's the other thing is, if you feel that you can't live your truth in your current in your career with your
Mm,
career, then are you
say
in the
that.
right career? Because is it you or is it a representative that's going into work? So I mean, and that's the reality of it. If you are worried about, oh, when you walk out the doors of your office, it's like, oh, breather, I can take this mask off now, then you need to think, is this a position or
Mhm.
a place where you really want to be? because ultimately life is too short, right? You want to be happy, you want to have joy in your life, and you want to be able to be yourself regardless of who you're in front of. So are you putting yourself in front of the people that you truly want to be around and help in your career, or are you not living your true
Mm.
self and you're living based off of what someone told you you're supposed to be? So there's many layers into this. So yeah, if you're not living your true self, then that's some self-reflecting that you need to do, and you need to possibly look for a career coach even to determine where where what career you should really be in to be happy.
Absolutely. Loving yourself. Loving yourself and career is a subject that's not really spoken about as often as we would like. So, we're going to pause right here. We want to thank you guys for listening and come back next week as we actually dive a little deeper into self love and career. You would want to come back so you can learn how not loving yourself could lead you down the wrong career path. Thanks again. Come back to Loving Me Before I Love You with Tammy Nicole.